We'll go league-wide next week. The tiny bit of league news would be regarding the All-Star voting, and that one Mr. Kobe Bryant is far and away leading the All-Star voting with 1.2 million votes so far this year. LeBron James has under 700,000. So Kobe has almost twice the votes that LeBron does for the All-Star game this year. Kobe's barely even playing. The way that relationship is ending here with him and the Lakers is just messy and ugly and counterproductive for everyone. They're paying him $24 million to play like 10 minutes a game and sit on the bench when there's a game-winning shot to be had in the final 5 seconds or so. So just it's unfortunate, it's ugly, but as long as Kupchak and the Buss family are running the Lakers, they're gonna be a joke. They don't know what they're doing, and it's time to get them out. If you're a Lakers fan. All right, NBA quickie done. College basketball top 25. Yeah, they're playing college basketball in the NCAA right now, and we're quite a ways away from March Madness yet. So boom, there's your college basketball. UFC 195 recap. No, let's save that just a little bit. Let's go to tennis and golf. Both of their seasons start very soon. Spieth enters the golf season number 1. Look for him to continue that. No reason to believe there will be a downslide there. And then in tennis, the Australian Open starts, I want to say January 17th. So Serena Williams will be going down there to defend her title and try this year for the calendar Grand Slam that she fell just one short of in the last tournament this past season at the U.S. Open, which she had won 2 or 3 years in a row. All right, moving on to baseball, and then we'll get in our couple fight topics and our quick thought of the day. But the baseball, they had a big free agent signing first off. Alex Gordon re-signed with the Kansas City Royals, 4 years, $72 million. That's just under $20 million a year. Wow. Teach your kids to play baseball, apparently, is the lesson to be learned here. You're like, Alex Gordon, who? Like, unless you're Mr. Clean or some other hardcore baseball fan, you don't know who the heck Alex Gordon is. So yeah, there's that. But then the main news was regarding the Hall of Fame. They just announced this year's Hall of Fame class on Wednesday this week, and there were 2 inductees, Ken Griffey Jr. and Mike Piazza. If I were voting, these are the only 2 people that I would have for sure felt should have been on here as well. I would have voted for a few other people, but these would be the ones I would expect to get in. Anybody else who was close, which would be Tim Raines in his 9th year of eligibility, next year will be his final year on the regular ballot, and then Jeff Bagwell, or Jeff Buff Bagwell. Not really, but that's what I like to call him. He just missed out as well. Mark McGwire missed out. It was his final year on the ballot. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens both went up slightly in voting, but I think they each got around like 10 to 12% more votes than they did last year. And that brings me to the real story, is that this is the first year in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame voting process under their new guidelines for who is allowed to vote. Where it used to be up until this year that as long as at some point in your life you had covered Major League Baseball professionally as a writer for 10 consecutive years or more, you had a Hall of Fame vote every year for the rest of your life. They kind of took that away this year. Basically, what they didn't take it away. It's not like, well, you haven't written for 20 years, so you can't vote anymore. They just basically made everybody reapply. Many people chose not to reapply, but so you got 440 voters for the Baseball Writers Hall of Fame now this year that were participating, and you're going to see the voters, the voting get done by the younger writers, and that will change some of the votes. Like I said, you saw that with Clemens and Bonds, steroid users, actually going up and being more accepted yet. But the 2 vote getters, Mike Piazza, greatest home run hitting catcher of all time, cannot argue that. And according to a lot of baseball experts, is one of the 3 to 5 greatest catchers of all time, period. He hit over 400 home runs in his career, like a 13, 14-time All-Star, 3-time MVP finalist. He deserves to be there. And then your head of the class, the only other member, was Ken Griffey Jr., receiving 99.3% of the votes, a record. Since there has been voting, that is a record for the most unanimous voting for any one person. 437 voters out of 440 voted for Ken Griffey Jr. So it does beg the question, who are the 3 people that did not vote for Ken Griffey Jr., and how soon can we revoke their rights to vote for the Baseball Hall of Famers? That's my thing. But so they got it completely right. The only 2 people that were unquestionably should have got in on this year's ballot did. Other people who need to, play the waiting game, like Bonds and Clemens, they made progress, but they're still waiting. And other questionables, like Tim freaking Raines, were kept out. And that is the right thing. Tim Raines, for God's sake, is not a Hall of Famer. Are you freaking kidding me? Tim Raines, Hall of Famer? Guy played somewhere between 14 and 20 seasons. Not once, not in one of those seasons, was he the best player on his team. Or at least, outside of maybe the very early Montreal Expos years. But this was a guy, if you're going to let people like Tim Raines into the Baseball Hall of Fame, where's Tony Oliva? Heck, let's throw Kent Herbeck in there. Let's throw Chuck Knobloch in there. Let's see who else is insanely mediocre that we could throw in there. Jorge Posada and Bernie Williams of the Yankees should undoubtedly be in there. If Tim Raines is in there. Tim Raines is not, and never was at any point in time, a Hall of Famer. So please, in next year's voting, when it is his 10th and final year, keep him out. Protect the dang integrity of the Hall of Fame. That's my favorite thing about the Baseball Hall of Fame is one year they'll let 5 or 6 guys in. The next year, they won't let a single freaking person in. And I love that about the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Keep it to the best of the best, the greatest of the greats. Tim Raines was never even remotely close to any of these things. And speaking of Hall of Fames, the NFL has announced their finalists for the upcoming Hall of Fame class, including Brett Favre, Terrell Owens, and many others. Look that up on my Facebook, Scotty-Ball. I got it posted there. All right, so now we finally go to our UFC 195 recap, where in the main event, champion Robbie Lawler defended his UFC welterweight title against Carlos Condit. And this was one heck of a main event. It went all 5 rounds. Both men were beat up, something fierce, and it ended in a split decision. That's right, Robbie Lawler defeats Carlos Condit via split decision. So it just goes to show and prove to you that it's just because you don't have the biggest, best, most exciting names in a main event fight doesn't mean that it's not going to be a great 5-star main event fight. Quite often, it goes the opposite, where yes, the less famous names put on the better shows, and then the bigger names, they're a little more disappointing because you have expectations that are higher, things of that nature. Their fights only last 13 seconds, like Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey. But so that was the result of the main event. We had Stipe Miocic defeat Andrei Arlovsky via first-round knockout 54 seconds into it. We had Albert Tumanov defeat Lawrence Larkin via split decision. We had Brian Ortega defeat Diego Brandao via triangle submission, minute 37 into round 3. And we had Abel Trujillo defeat Tony Sims via guillotine submission, 3 minutes and 18 seconds into round 1. So that was all your main card fights. And then on the undercard, we had McDonald defeat Masonori. We had McDonald defeated Masonori. Missionary. It's like my 8th favorite position. All right, then we had Morano defeat Kyle Noke. Dang it, I like Kyle Noke via split decision. Justine Kish defeated Nina Ansaroff. Drew Dober beat Scott Holtzman. Dustin Poirier, defeated Joseph Duffy. That's a nice, easy name to say. Michinori Tanaka defeated Joe Soto. And Sheldon Westcott defeated Edgar Garcia. So there is your UFC 195 recap. Sorry it isn't in greater detail, but we do have one more bit of UFC news to bring up, and that is regarding my girl Ronda Rousey. She has announced that she will be hosting Saturday Night Live this January 23rd. So, very curious to see if she does good, if she flops. what she says about the fight with Holly, all that stuff. So definitely going to be tuning in. I am for that. And speaking of Holly, it has been announced that she will be fighting someone before she has her rematch with Ronda, and that looks like that will be Holly Holm versus Miesha Tate at UFC 197. That is the tentative plan. All right. So WWE and our Balls Deep thought of the day. That's what we got left. Again, thanks for listening. I'm Scotty Ball. This is Balls Deep Sports Talk. Now, in the world of pro wrestling / WWE, the big stories are the Royal Rumble is coming up in just 2 weeks on Sunday. My favorite pay-per-view of the year, other than WrestleMania. Sometimes it is my favorite pay-per-view of the year. I love the theme. I love the timing of it. All the storylines are big, and moving forward to WrestleMania, we're on the road to WrestleMania. It was a huge announcement that Roman Reigns, current champion, will be participating in the Royal Rumble match at the pay-per-view, and that his title will be on the line in said match, so that the winner of the Royal Rumble will win the title. Now, at first, I did not like this idea, but the more I thought about it, I think it is perfect, because they have been using the Royal Rumble pay-per-view to determine the number one contenders for titles for many years now. And then there's a pay-per-view in between the Rumble and WrestleMania that's really just kind of pointless. By doing it this way, we can use the Royal Rumble to determine the champion going into WrestleMania. Then we can use that pay-per-view in between the two events, now called Fastlane, used to be Elimination Chamber, way better. Now we can use the in-between pay-per-view called Fastlane to determine the number one contender. And then at WrestleMania, they go at it. I love it. I think that is a phenomenal, great idea to get the most out of both pay-per-views as opposed to just one. Now, all signs point to Triple H versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Whether the title will be involved in this or not is yet to be determined. So your three outcomes for the Royal Rumble are this. Well, actually, you know what? We'll save that because we got a Royal Rumble preview coming up here in just a week or two that I'll get my special guest, WWE guru extraordinaire Doug Sanders, in for. But so then the other big stories in WWE would be the injury epidemic. John Cena just came back just in time to get on the road to WrestleMania and be a big draw for that, and now he's out with shoulder surgery again and is almost certainly not going to be participating at WrestleMania. So, do they bring Daniel Bryan back? It is way past time if he is healthy. It sounds like they've just refused to medically clear him is the only deal there. So look for them out of desperation to have to bring Daniel Bryan back, probably at the Royal Rumble. What else do we got? Vince has been involved a lot now. That reeks of desperation and road to WrestleMania time. But yeah, just injuries galore. Charlotte, Diva Champ, turning heel. Let's see. Dean's IC Champ, New Day's still tag champs. Look for some new signings and debuts, such as AJ Styles, amongst others, at the upcoming Royal Rumble. SmackDown has now officially moved to Thursday nights on the USA Network, so Raw and SmackDown are finally on the same channel. That's about dang time. Y2J, Chris Jericho, came back. Interesting to see what they use him for. I'm sure he'll probably have a WrestleMania, bring him back in time to work WrestleMania and then write him out shortly after that. And then Lucha Underground will start airing here in just a couple weeks. Super, super stoked for that. Best wrestling on TV in the world, bar none. So boom, there's your WWE Pro Wrestling Talk. We'll have plenty more of it on the upcoming weeks leading to the Royal Rumble. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I am pretty much at the end of my brain. I hope I didn't mess up the show too bad for you guys this week. But I guess I can take solace in knowing the fact that I have done worse. And anybody who caught our, landmark maiden voyage of the show 46 weeks ago, now that we're on episode number 47, they know exactly what I'm talking about. So hopefully it's not too bad. But let's get to our Balls Deep thought of the day. We're going to keep it quick, short, and sweet, and just give you something to chew on till next week's show. But earlier in the show, I mentioned, a sports-related debate or conversation or argument or whatever you want to call it, just that topic in general was discussing for a little bit, and that